Okay, so we're going to get started here tonight. So welcome to our Twilight Talk. My name is Ranger Andrew. On behalf of myself and the National Park Service, we'd like to welcome you guys to Devil's Postpile National Monument and the Red Meadow Valley if you guys are staying in another campground or just visiting for the day. So tonight we're going to talk about one of the most loved and one of the most feared animals here at Devil's Postpile, the black bear. We're going to talk about the black bear in popular culture. We're going to talk about our perceptions of the black bear and then how those perceptions change over time. And then we'll see the black bear in its natural environment. We'll learn all about the black bear and what to do if you see a black bear here at Devil's Postpile tonight. So black bears can represent everything from warmth and comfort to fear and the unknown, which makes our relationship, human relationships with black bears, really complex. So that's a relationship that we're going to break down a little bit tonight. So to start off our night, what I'd like to do is I want to get everyone's thoughts on black bears. We're going to record everybody's thoughts on bears in general. And so if I say the word bear to you, I'd like you all to think, what's one or two words that come to mind if I say the word bear? Just think for a minute. We're going to write them all down. So if I say the word bear, what are one or two words that come to mind? All right. So what we're going to do, how we're going to break this down, is we're going to do kids first, and then we'll do adults. Okay, so everybody think one or two words that come to mind. I saw a hand over here first. What's a word that? Awesome. Okay. That's a good one. Yeah.
They smell with their nose and they smell with their noses.
Smell with nose. Okay. I like it. Let's go down the row here. Do you have one? No? Yeah.
Fierce.
Fierce. Okay. Do you guys have one?
They eat berries and fish.
Berries and fish. Good one. All right. David, right? All right. What's your word? Cool. All right. Yeah.
Big.
Big. Very cool. And do you guys have any words for bears? What's the first thing that comes to mind when you think of a bear? You don't know? That's okay. Yeah.
Wild.
Wild. All right. Very cool.
Kids.
Okay, so we'll move on. So adults, what do you guys think? Parents, what are some words? We'll start back there. Do you have one?
Multicolored.
Multicolored. Curious.
Yogi.
Yogi. That one always comes up. Anything else? Adults. Parents.
I think of hibernation.
Hibernation, that's a good one. Any last ones? Either side?
Multiple types of polar bears.
Different types, yeah. Okay, this is a really good list of thoughts for bears. We've got awesome, fierce, big, wild, multicolored, curious. That's a good one. Hibernation, and different types. So all of these things we're going to talk about tonight. We'll put this list aside. We'll come back to it a little bit later. So you know what's interesting is that we didn't get any words that we often associate with bears from very early on in age. The first time most of us experience bears are when we're really, really young, sometimes even babies. Do you guys know when we first experience bears?
Something that's soft and
Teddy bears, right? Teddy bears, for sure. So by a show of hands, how many people have or have ever had a teddy bear? Yeah, most of us have had a teddy bear, right? I have a teddy bear. His name is Teddy, obviously. It's not this teddy bear, but
I named my favorite Teddy.
yours is Teddy too. We both have teddy bears named Teddy. Very cool. So most of us start off our experience with bears as teddy bears. And actually, teddy bears are pretty cool. They've been around for over 100 years. In fact, last year we celebrated the 110th anniversary of the teddy bear. And to start the story of the teddy bear, we have to go all the way back in time to 1902. 1902, the story of the teddy bear began with which president? Does anybody remember? Who's teddy bear named after? Do you know?
Teddy Roosevelt?
Teddy Roosevelt, yeah, very good. Teddy Roosevelt, Theodore Roosevelt. So in 1902, President Teddy Roosevelt, he was on a hunting trip in Mississippi. And he was with a larger hunting party. He had some other guys with him, and he had some bear dogs with him. And they were going out and they were hunting bears and other animals. And part of his hunting party went off ahead of him. And his hunting party actually found a black bear, and they surrounded it with the bear dogs. And what they did is they knocked that bear unconscious, they tied it to a tree, and they offered it to the president as an easy kill for his hunting trip. Now, when President Roosevelt got there, he said that he thought it was unsportsmanlike to kill a bear that had been knocked unconscious and was tied to a tree. So he did not kill the bear, which is pretty valid, so, I think. But he did not kill the bear. That bear was killed by somebody else on the hunting party, but he decided he was not going to kill that bear. Now, the story of this got out to the press, and people loved it. They saw Teddy Roosevelt as being a compassionate and kind person to this bear, and a political cartoon was drawn. This political cartoon started out with an adult bear, and Teddy Roosevelt deciding not to shoot it, and it changed over time as that cartoon changed, and it ended with a little baby cub tied to a tree, and the president saying, "I will not kill this bear." So in 1903, toy maker Morris Mitchum decided he was going to make a plush toy to commemorate this event. And he actually called President Roosevelt and asked him if he could call it the teddy bear after him. And the president agreed, he gave his permission. So in 1903, we got the first teddy bear, and we've had this bear with us for over 100 years. Now, metaphorically and historically, the teddy bear represents kindness and compassion, with the president deciding not to kill that bear. But physically, the teddy bear represents something else. It represents warmth and safety. When do we go to grab the teddy bear and hug the teddy bear, and when do we want our teddy bear the most? What do you guys think? What's that? Bedtime? Yeah, bedtime, when we go to sleep, right? We grab the teddy bear when we want to feel comfortable, when we want to feel warm, and we want to feel safe, when we're feeling the most vulnerable. So the teddy bear is really the first introduction of bears into our culture as this feeling of warmth and comfort. And this feeling has spread throughout storybooks and TV shows for the last 100 years. And we see it in a lot of other different types of bears as well. So, by show of hands, who recognizes these bears? Which bears are these ones? The Berenstain Bears, right? Yeah, we've all read the Berenstain Bear books. The Berenstain Bears, with their calm demeanor and sweet disposition, they teach us things in their stories. They teach us things, everything from how not to bully somebody else and how to go visit the dentist. They teach us all kinds of things, the Berenstain Bears. What about this bear? Winnie the Pooh, yeah, Winnie the Pooh. He's the bear of the Ashdown Forest, and Winnie the Pooh teaches us about friendship and relationships in his connections with Tigger, Eeyore, and Piglet. And what about this bear? Smokey Bear, yeah, it's Smokey Bear. What does Smokey Bear teach us? Do you guys know? Yeah, human caused fires and how not to start fires in the forest, right? So all of these bears, the Berenstain Bears, Yogi Bear too, but Winnie the Pooh and Smokey Bear, they all serve as teachers. They teach us how to share, they teach us how to care about one another, and they teach us how to be human. So, with this in mind, how many people came out here tonight to Devil's Postpile? They came camping and they said, I just can't wait to find a nice bear in the campground. I'm going to give it a hug when I go to sleep. And it's going to be there. It's going to be warm and safe when I give this bear a hug. Did anybody feel that way? No. No.
Have you met a real bear?
Have I met a real bear? Well, that's the question.
I said, do you mean a real bear?
Well, so we don't think of these warm and comforting things when we think of real bears, right? So as we come into the forest, into a different environment, our thoughts and perceptions of bears change. What do you guys think changes about it when we come to the forest? What changes?
We become afraid of it.
We become afraid, exactly. That feeling of comfort and safety turns to a feeling of fear. And, you know, I think this occurs because we realize that bears are actually wild animals when we come out to the forest and into the woods. We see bears are wild animals and we realize that bears are bigger and they're stronger than we are. And that's a reality of bears. Bears are much, much bigger than we are. Here in California, we have one species of bear, the black bear. They can be up to 600 pounds and they can run 35 miles an hour, up to 35 miles an hour. Who thinks they can run 35 miles an hour? Anybody? You can?
Unless they,
I can't run 35 miles an hour.
unless there's this lazy bear that eats instead of running.
Yeah, there can be some lazy bears too. But we realize that bears are wild animals, they're bigger and they're stronger than we are. But in reality, bears are actually, black bears in California are actually one of the more docile bears in North America. So tonight we're going to talk about the black bear and hopefully change that perception of fear in the black bear as we get to know about the black bear a little bit more. And actually, this is the perfect time to get up close and personal with a black bear. This is probably the closest to a bear that you'll get at Devil's Post Pile. In fact, hopefully it is the closest you'll get because I'm offering for you guys to come up and pet the fur, look at the bear skull. You guys can come on up if you guys haven't felt the bear fur. Did you guys feel it the other day? No, come on up. Feel this bear fur. You guys can come up too. And we've got the bear claws on the side here.
Yeah, this is a real bear.
So this is a real bear fur. This is a bear from California. And California only has one species of bear. It's the black bear. But what do you guys notice about the fur here?
It's brown.
It's brown, right? This isn't a black fur, it's a brown fur. So a lot of people think that when they see this bear, they think it's a grizzly bear or a brown bear. It is a real bear, yeah.
What happened to that bear?
But in reality, so it's got brown fur, but in reality, this is a black bear. About 90% of the bears in California are brown, blonde, or what this color is considered a cinnamon color. So most of the bears you'll see here, they're not going to be traditional black bears. They're going to be brown or blonde or cinnamon color. Where's the heart? This is just the fur. Yeah, so this is only the skin of it. That's a good question. Why did we kill it? Well, this bear, he was not a great bear. He was breaking into houses multiple times. He broke into a house to try and get food. And we're going to talk a little bit later about what happens if you see a bear so that that doesn't happen to anybody else. So about 90% of our bears are this brown color, and oftentimes people do think they're grizzly bears. So how do you know if you're looking at a grizzly bear or a black bear? Well, the first thing to ask yourself, if I can find my map, is where in the country are you? Right? So I already said in California we only have black bears. We don't have any brown or grizzly bears. But if you're anywhere else in the country, think back to this map that I'm showing you tonight. So down here, this green map on the bottom, that's the range of the black bear. It goes up the east coast, across the northern part of the United States and Canada, and then back down the west coast and the Intermountain West. So it's pretty widespread across the United States. The grizzly bear, however, up here in the blue, the grizzly bear only exists in 5 states in the United States. Alaska, if you're up in Alaska, you're likely to see a grizzly bear up in Alaska. But down here in the lower 48, the only other states you're going to see a grizzly bear is Idaho, Montana, Wyoming, and they're just now starting to come into the northern parts of Washington State. So, here in California, we're pretty safe. We know if we see a bear, it's going to be a black bear. But what happens if you're in one of those other 5 states that have both black bears and grizzly bears? There are a couple other things that you can tell the difference. So we've got the black bear here and the grizzly bear on this side. The first thing is grizzly bears are really, really big. They're much bigger than black bears. So if you see a really, really big bear, you're probably looking at a grizzly bear if you're in one of those grizzly states. But the way to be sure that you're looking at a grizzly bear, if you look at the grizzly here, this brown bear on this side, you see a little hump on the back between the shoulders, right? Do you guys see that little hump where my finger's pointing? So that hump, only grizzly bears have that. Black bears do not. I kind of think of black bears sort of like slouching down and they don't have a hump on their back, but the grizzly bears do. So that's the way you tell the difference between a grizzly bear and a black bear if you're in grizzly country. So, we talk about this idea of fear and being scared of black bears, but in reality, black bears are really docile bears. They don't like to be around people. They're just afraid of us as we are of them. And they can be easily scared, as easy as just yelling at it or throwing your hands up, looking really big. They tend to run away. Grizzlies can be a little bit more aggressive. Sometimes they will come after you if you startle them. But black bears don't tend to do that. So with that in mind, we're going to talk a little bit more about bears and then we're going to play a game. So we're going to play a game in a minute about bears and what they eat. But before we do that, we have to learn about what kind of eaters they are, what kind of things they feed on. So this is a bear skull that we have here. It's a replica, it's not a real skull. But this is a bear skull, and what we're going to do is we're going to take a look at the teeth. Yeah, we're going to take a look at the teeth tonight. So if we're looking at the bear's teeth, what kind of food do you think it eats?
Fish.
It eats meat, and most of the meat it eats is fish. Very good. What else?
Berries.
It eats berries, yeah. Yep. But that's okay. No, they don't eat humans. They don't want to eat humans. Yeah.
Small mammals.
They could eat small mammals. So how do you know they eat meat? What teeth show that they eat meat?
The big teeth.
The front teeth, right? These really sharp teeth. So these sharp teeth show that they eat meat, and they mostly eat fish or really small mammals. What about these flat teeth down here?
Berries.
What do you think these are used for?
Berries.
Yeah, they're used to grind up plants or berries, things like that. So do you guys know the term for an animal that eats both meat and plants?
Herbivore.
Not a herbivore. Herbivores eat plants.
Lion.
Yeah, it's an omnivore. I don't know who said it, but an omnivore. So omnivores eat both meat and plants. Right, so these omnivores. So our black bears, they're actually, they get really hungry because they are hibernating for 3 to 4 months out of the year. During the winter months, hibernation was one of the words on the board. So they do hibernate for a part of the year, mostly in the wintertime. And when they wake up, they're really, really hungry. And that's when we humans often interact with those bears, because what's really good to find in the campground over there for bears? Yeah, they're going to find a lot of food in the campground. So that's where bears and people come together in the forest.
And you can go fishing.
No, but they'll find fish on their own. That's a good point. So bears and humans often come together, especially in campgrounds, when bears come out of hibernation and they're looking for food. They can lose about 40% of their fat over the winter, and so they get really, really hungry when they wake up and they're looking for food. So at this point, we're going to play a game and we're going to learn a little bit about what bears think of as food. So I mentioned that you've got some little pieces of paper that are around the campground, or around the amphitheater here. And what we're going to do is I'm going to play the cleverly disguised black bear, and I'm going to be looking for as much food as possible. Okay, my goal, I just woke up, I've been asleep for 3 months, and I'm looking for as much food as possible. And so I'm going to start picking up that food as I find it. And your goal is to go around and look for those pieces of food and pick them up before I do, okay? Make sense? Okay, let's start on 3. 1, 2, 3.
Okay, let's go. It's fine.
Hold on to it, Keenan. We'll put some more. Thanks, Dad.
What do you do? Some more?
Okay, you know what, guys? I think that you guys found all the food because I don't see any more of it.
Okay, good.
So let's sit down and see what we found.
Oh, that's like
Okay, what kind of things did you guys find? What'd you guys find? You found some berries, okay. You found some more berries. Sunscreen. Who else found sunscreen?
I found berries.
Yeah, so sunscreen. Is sunscreen food?
No.
No, not to us, but to bears.
What?
Anything with a smell. I think you mentioned that they smell with their nose, right? That's one of the strongest senses that bears have, is their sense of smell. So they can smell everything from sunscreen, soap, shampoo,
Wow.
all kinds of things that you wouldn't expect to be food, but to a bear when they smell it, they do think it's food. Yeah.
Does it smell fear?
Do they smell fear? That's a good question. They can't smell fear. They're not going to know when you're afraid. And you know what? When you're afraid, what are you probably going to do at it?
Run.
Well, scream, right? You're going to start screaming, and that's a good thing to do. We'll get to that. So what else? What other kinds of food did we find? What other kinds of food?
Where, who else?
What kind of food did you guys find? Some fish, some bacon, some more berries. Okay, I'll tell you what I found as a bear. I found some sunscreen. Not good. You don't want a bear to eat sunscreen. I also found some bacon, which is not good for the bear. But I found something that bears do eat and they should eat. I found some insects. So actually, insects are one of the biggest sources of food for bears. Mostly they eat berries and they eat insects. Think about a 600-pound bear, and they're mostly eating insects, which is pretty good. So, you guys know what kind of food they eat, and even things that we don't think of as food that they can think of as food. So now, what can you do to prevent bears from getting things like this? And also, what do you do if you see a bear in real life? We'll talk about that now. So one thing, what do you guys think you should do in your campground to prevent them from getting things like this?
Put in the
Yeah.
bear box.
Yeah, exactly. Put things in the bear box, right? The bears can't smell through the bear box. So when you put food in there, they're not going to go and try and get in there because they don't know what's in there. Yeah.
What's the bear box made?
It's made of metal, but they're not going to try and get into that bear box because they haven't gotten into it before, so they don't know what to go in there for. Yeah. So you want to put everything in the bear box. Also, do you think you want that bear box open or closed? Yeah, we want to keep that bear box closed unless we can reach it. If we're within arm's reach, it's okay if that bear box is open, but if we can't reach it, we want that bear box closed so the bears don't get into it. Yeah, what else do you think you want to do around camp?
No food in the tent.
No food in the tent. Yeah, you don't want any food in your tent. That includes things like chapstick or sunscreen. Yeah, you don't want any of that in your tent because bears will start pawing at the tent like, what is in there? Yeah, what else? Anything else? Yeah. Exactly, put trash on the trash can. So we want to keep a nice, clean campsite. Yeah.
Will they go for water?
Generally, no, they won't go for water. That's a good question.
Will they go for what? What was the question?
Water.
Okay.
Yeah. So generally, they don't really go for water. Other drinks, though, soda
They will go for soda,
or
yeah.
juice or anything that's left out, they can smell. But water, probably. That's a good question.
So they usually come down to the little rivers to get their water?
Exactly, yeah. So this is one of the best places that you can go to see bears is our meadow, because what do we find in meadows? We find berries, they can go to the river and they can get water, they can get fish, and they also find lots of insects. So this is the place to see our bears here. Absolutely. So what do you guys think you do if you encounter a bear?
Stand around and walk back and yell.
Yeah, you want to yell?
Yell and scream and make a bunch of noise.
Exactly, yeah.
Go in the car and honk the horn.
That is actually a good idea. Make a lot of noise, right? So I said that bears are just as scared of us as we are of them. And noise is what's going to scare them off. So the reason why we don't want bears around us is because if they get into our food, they're going to keep coming back and they won't be scared of us anymore if they get our food. So we want to scare them away. We want them to find their own food that they can find out in nature. They have plenty of food out in nature to find. So one thing is you want to yell and scream. Make a lot of noise and yell at it. Honk the horn. It might run away. That's a good one. I like it. Also, you want to make yourself look really big. So put your arms up and yell and scream at the bear and go, "Go away, bear!" Can you guys say that with me? Go away, bear! Go away, bear! Yeah, very good. So I think one of you guys also said that sometimes bears will run at you. And that's true. Sometimes black bears do run at you. And it's because they're also scared and they're trying to see whether you are the dominant animal or it's the dominant animal. And with black bears, not the case for grizzly bears, but with black bears, if a black bear runs at you, you want to stand where you are. I heard somebody say stand their ground. You don't want to run away, because if you run away, that bear's going to keep on chasing you. But if you stand there and you keep your arms up and you keep looking big and yelling at it, that bear is going to say, okay, this person's not moving. That's the dominant animal. So sometimes they do what's called a bluff charge, and they'll charge at you, and it's a bluff. It's trying to see if you're dominant or it's dominant. If you stand your ground, you're saying to the bear that you are the dominant animal, and they will generally stop before they get to you, and then they walk off. So, I know, it's kind of scary, right? If a bear's coming at you, you're not going to think, oh, I'll just stand here. But that's one thing you want to do. You guys have a question?
What would a grizzly bear do?
So a grizzly bear is different. That's a good question. If you see a grizzly bear and it comes at you, you've probably heard you want to play dead. So grizzly bears, they're not going to bluff charge you. You want to get down on the ground and pretend like you're dead, that your eyes are closed and cover your head. Yep.
What if a bear comes towards you and you don't have time to do what you said? You probably going to learn how to do a backflip.
Backflip? I don't know. You'll have to figure that out if that ever happens. But one last thing, if a bear does attack, a black bear, if a black bear does attack you, amazingly, you're supposed to fight back. Because it's, again, establishing that dominance. So with a black bear, if you fight back, the goal is that it will stop fighting you. Whether that's true or not, I don't know. I've never fought a black bear. So, with that, we're going to end the evening with a song so you guys can remember what to do if you see a black bear. And what I'd like everybody to do is like everybody to stand up, and I want you guys to sing along with me once you get to the tune, and it's going to be a little bit of repeat after me, or do as I do, okay?
Okay.
So, here we go. If you want to scare a bear, clap your hands. If you want to scare a bear, clap your hands. If you want to scare a bear, 'cause you really know he's there. If you want to scare a bear, clap your hands. If you want to scare a bear, stomp your feet. If you want to scare a bear, stomp your feet. If you want to scare a bear, 'cause you really know he's there. If you want to scare a bear, stomp your feet. If you want to scare a bear, yell and scream, "Hey, bear!" If you want to scare a bear, yell and scream, "Hey, bear!" If you want to scare a bear, 'cause you really know he's there. If you want to scare a bear, yell and scream, "Hey, bear!" If you want to scare a bear, do all three. Hey, bear! If you want to scare a bear, do all three. Hey, bear! If you want to scare a bear, 'cause you really know he's there. If you want to scare a bear, yell and scream. Oh, do all three. Hey, bear! All right, guys, good job. So hopefully you guys know a little bit more about bears in popular culture, where we first experienced bears, your perceptions of bears, and hopefully you go back to your campsite tonight not being afraid of them because you know what to do when you see them. And thank you guys so much for joining me. If you guys have any questions or want to pet the bear some more, feel free to do so. I hope you guys have a great evening tonight. Thank you. Yeah, definitely. No, I'll take those back. Any of the little pieces of food, I'll take back. We're gonna